Do you even have any fucking clue how high I am right now? Do you? Let me fill you in, champ. I'm so high that I'm literally about to suck my own cock while lathering my balls in lighter fluid. I'm not even flexible enough to make that happen, and my cock is definitely not nearly long enough, but I swear to God I'll find a fucking way to make it happen. No one can stop me. Not you, not your mother, not even the guy that I saw today who was pushing around a shopping cart with 12 severed heads of people from various ethnic backgrounds. Everyone who saw this guy was fleeing in terror. Except me. Not because I'm a badass and not because I'm smart. Only because I knew he was just trying to make an honest living by selling severed heads to people at a discount price. I calmly approached him and asked, "How much for the Filipino?" He looked at me, smiled and said, "For you it's double the usual price, retard." I immediately looked at him in disgust and said, "Wow dude. You can't use that word in 2020. People might hear it and get upset. Then they might launch a smear campaign on you. The last thing the world needs is the reputation of an honest severed head salesman to be dragged through the mud. That would piss me off so fucking much, and I would kill at least 7 people out of anger if that was to ever happen. Please be more careful with your words." Bewildered by what I just said, he stared back at me for what felt like an eternity before he even replied with anything. Then I saw his mouth slowly open. I waited with an overwhelming amount of anticipation to hear his response. Then it happened. I felt his words elegantly escape his mouth and burrow themselves gently into my ear canals. The Cable Guy is a criminally underrated movie and deserves a much higher review from critics. It depicts the slow mental breakdown of an outcast that begins a dark descent into a pit of despair and desperation. He did everything he could to simply make a connection with a human being because his existence was such a lonely, empty void. He desired that human connection so strongly that his actions had no regard for the law or socially acceptable behavior. He tried whatever he felt was necessary at the moment to simply gain that connection he longed for so passionately. That is actually quite profound, but perhaps the decision to portray the story in a comedic fashion only hurt the chances of the film becoming a critical and commercial success. I stared back at him in complete shock and surprise. Even though the statements he had just made had nothing to do with what we were currently discussing, his series of thoughts in his last breaths were too good to ignore. Yes, I agree 100%, but I would also like to add that perhaps the general public were not ready to see Jim Carrey as such a dark and disturbed character. Before The Cable Guy, audiences only knew him as zany and cartoony caricatures of what a person really is. Despite his character in The Cable Guy still being extremely over the top, there was far too much reality in the dark scenes of the performance to be accepted by the people who only knew him as the characters in his previous films. The majority of people who saw that film at the time were too disturbed by this to realize it was actually a brilliant artistic accomplishment that should have been appreciated. I believe The Cable Guy largely failed due to bad timing. It was too early in his career to be playing such a twisted character of that nature, and there was not enough progression into that role before that point in his career. That's just my 2 cents though. To my surprise, the man with the shopping cart looked furious after he heard me elaborate further on the movie he decided to spontaneously review. "Dude, you gonna fucking buy a severed head or not?" At that point I decided that he was no longer worth speaking to, and I simply removed my penis from my pants and began urinating on his leg. He immediately became infuriated and charged at me with his fists in a violent rage. I managed to grab him by the head with my open palms and then began forcefully jamming my thumbs into his eye sockets as he screeched in agonized suffering. He dropped to the floor, clutching at his face in terror and pain as blood leaked out of his cranium. I then casually grabbed his shopping cart and said, "These are all mine now. It was a good day. If you want to purchase a severed head, please email me for inquiries and let me know which ethnic background you'd like to have. But please hurry because these things are starting to rot pretty badly because my freezer recently broke. Holy fuck, the smell is honestly worse than that time I collected over 8 pounds of schmegma from homeless people's penises and kept it all in the bathroom sink for at least 3 weeks. Anyway, I'd really appreciate your business because I'm running out of money quickly due to my uncontrollable ketamine addiction. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. It means a lot to me. Have a wonderful day and or night."